Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alignment Recess Live. My name is Tiffany Lauren Jones, and this is a space for the conversations that a lot of people avoid. So, we're here to talk about all the things, the transitions, the unraveling, and the truth behind reinvention. And today, we're naming something that many high functioning women really carry: the pressure to be everything, to do everything, and to hold it all together, even when it's really breaking us. So today I am joined by the fabulous and very excited Monica Jones. She is a wellness coach, a healer, a powerful guide for women seeking reconnection with themselves. And she creates spaces that help women disrupt societal pressure by choosing self love in the now, not someday, which is really powerful because I know I definitely thought about choosing myself for a really long time before I actually did it. We'll get into the whys. It can be scary and a lot of work, right? She is an Under Armour athlete. She's a pro at improving mental health through movement. And today she's here with us for a conversation about redefining success, starting over, and choosing connection over performance. So, welcome, Monica, again. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm so much better after that intro. I feel like my success is totally redefined after that intro. But
Yeah.
the sun is out. It's hot here. I'm here for it.
Yes, it's our season. We're summer babies. I always love for my guests, I introduce you, but I love for you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your own story and how you arrived at this season. Whatever you're comfortable sharing,
Mhm.
and really how you see yourself.
Thank you for that. How I see myself is just a flawed yet loved, blessed human being. Honestly, I'm just one of those women who's like failing forward and has had the blessing of being brave enough to share some of those failures in tandem with lots and lots of success. So the true success in all that is that I've been able to make connections with people and women especially on some of the tougher things that I've faced that oftentimes make us feel like we're alone and can be isolating. My career started in just me sharing my desire to be more fit as a runner and as a yogi when I was in my early 20s, but behind the scenes, I had an eating disorder. And so the more that I shared, the more that I expressed, and I look back in hindsight's 2020, the more that I did that, the closer I got to healing. So although
Right.
people didn't know it in the moment, it was like the fact that I continued to share, the fact that so many women started to be impressed with what I was doing, inspired by what I was doing. I got to a point where it was like I couldn't really hold in that part of what I was struggling with. And I'm just blessed to have been able to heal during that process without any harsh interventions. It was just like alignment and just being covered by God. And that has grown into a social media following, becoming a group fitness coach, not just a personal trainer, and then becoming this globally recognized athlete with a brand that has told my story, not just used my likeness. And over the years, it's just grown into now me being in my 30s and going through what we'll talk about is the shift of that healing invisibility that we're all going through a little bit as women, redefining what success means over and over again. Really just at my core, I'm just a girl. Trying not to be ashy, trying to make sure that my ends are more. I put the lotion on, put on some eyeliner, and keep it pushing.
Yeah, getting back to the basics,
Yep.
especially with everything that's going on. I think that is so powerful and a reminder that healing and self-care, if you will, all the things, it can be difficult, but it doesn't have to be challenging or a lot all the time. It can be the basic things, like you said, making sure that you're taking care of the bare minimum. Sometimes that's enough. I've definitely had stages where that's all I could do. It was like, I want to make sure my hair is not falling out. I'm lotioned up. My teeth are brushed. We're showered. That's where we are. That's where we are.
And yeah, sometimes those basic things in different chapters can feel so difficult. And there's nothing that has carried me through like actual connection and relatability and safe spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. You need your people. Thank you so much for sharing a part of your story and something so vulnerable as an eating disorder, because I know a lot of people may experience that behind the scenes, but it takes a lot, I feel, of courage to not only experience that to self-heal and then to also share it with other people. That's really powerful, and I know there's so many people that probably told you or maybe even haven't yet felt comfortable enough to tell you that are watching from young girls to grown women that your story has likely saved them in some way or really helped them or healed them. And there's so much power in just sharing what we've experienced, but I know from experience that it's not easy to do. So it really speaks to your strength and your power. And as you mentioned, God working through you and your relationship with God, that's really beautiful. You mentioned that the progress is in the stillness we avoid sometimes. And obviously, to be able to self heal and to go through something so intense mentally and physically on your body and emotionally, spiritually, all of these things, you have to get still to really be honest with yourself and to face what it is that is happening with you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How did you get to that point where you were able to be still with yourself and say, you know what, I'm ready for a change. I want a different life and I'm going to do that, whether I have support or not?
Yeah, and this has happened in recurring cycles, right? We talk about cycles all the time. For me, that felt like just a rock bottom moment. I feel like you have the day-to-day stressors of anxiety that build up, and then depression is the big thing that just knocks you on your butt. And I was feeling more and more anxious around different life decisions that just things weren't feeling aligned in my day to day. And then it all just hit where I was like coming to this realization that I wasn't living my life for me. And I kept doing things that were betraying me and what I really wanted for myself just so that I could make others happy. And it's common. But there wasn't any specific moment. I do remember certain days where things actually changed for me. And they typically came off of big wins. So it's that big win, you're on top of the world, and then everything plummets from there. The big leap. The writer's name is Gay Hendricks. You get to this big achievement and then you have this plummet. So I can say in 21, when I got my first big contract with a big brand name, a huge app for women. I was put on the app. My boxing workouts were put on the app. It was like the top achievement in my career thus far. I just remember hitting that accomplishment and then immediately after being like, everything in my life is wrong. This is where I belong. This is what I'm supposed to have. This is what I'm worthy of. And I started to get so fed up with the things that I felt like I was with people pleasing, with putting everyone else before me, that I got really down on myself and started beating myself up as if every decision I'd made to that point was the wrong decision. Just remember, this caused so much static and inflammation in my relationships with people and the places I was working at because of the fact that I still felt like I didn't have control over it. And so I got into a deep funk. It then caused me to leave the company that I was with that I helped create and helped open. And then I got into therapy. And that's when you really start being like, oh my gosh, this is not here. This is what it's like to express my feeling. Dang. Okay. And then that's the catalyst. The catalyst for me was big success. Other moments that I had like that, I won the DC Golden Gloves in 2023. And that huge moment for me that came from weeks and weeks of really hard training, that moment was one that told me, hey, you are capable. What you are doing is sitting in this safe yet very uncomfortable place when you know it's time to go. So I ended up having a big breakup and changing my entire lifestyle, basically, living on my own as a single woman in DC in a very diverse, but also very expensive place to live. And it turned my life upside down because I was like, oh, I was living in this facade that I had a lot more stability than I did.
Yep.
Then I recognized everything that wasn't stable. So it just knocked me on my butt to the point where I couldn't do stuff. I was just emotionally, physically, mentally unable. And that is what caused stillness for me. It wasn't, oh, I'm kind of starting to feel this way. I'm going to get ahead of it and start talking to a therapist. It was like plummet to rock bottom. And
Yeah.
that was telling me, I told you sit down. Now you can sit down and figure it out.
Those moments, they come to you when it's time to see. We were talking a little bit about this backstage. You can't run from the truth, I think, especially when you are moving into alignment and making the choices to say, I want a different life. It's like the universe responds to that and it starts to show you, okay, everything else that's not in alignment with this new direction or the truth, it's going to be brought to your awareness. And that can be really jarring. It can be very intense. So kudos to you for guiding yourself through that and knowing that I need support from a therapist. I need support from community to be able to do all of those things for yourself. Of course, not to knock anyone who can't do that because it's a lot, but it's also powerful when you can do it for yourself. So I think that's really incredible that you chose yourself in those moments and said, you know what? I want something different for me.
Yeah.
Really, to really see yourself fully and love yourself in all parts. That's definitely something I wish that we saw more of is self-love isn't always pretty. It's not always the side of things that we see a lot of self-love about beauty and setting boundaries and standing up for yourself and some things that look strong or almost like performing strength sometimes in a way. But there are times where self-love does not feel strong. It doesn't feel good. It's really hard, especially in that rock bottom moment. And sometimes it's, am I gonna live through this? This is kind of intense.
I can compare that practice to what it's like to train for a fight.
Mm.
I had a coach, and that coach guided me to do things that I really didn't want to do. And oftentimes it was like sparring someone who was bigger, faster, better, just more experienced, and losing rounds constantly and returning and continuing to lose. And there's stretches of time where you're in training where none of it feels successful, none of it is sexy, none of it's cute. You have anxiety around the sessions because they're hard. You know you're gonna be tired. You know you're gonna have a hard time with it. But all of those moments build up to a greater success over time. But none of it was pretty. None of it felt great. But it's learning, it's growing, it's healing. And that's life. That's really what it is like to heal, to have self-love. Some moments, some stretches in time, it could be years even, but it's the same as having a relationship with someone else. You love them through thick and thin, and you gotta do the same for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you guide women to sit with themselves when it feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar? I know there's the wellness and the fitness aspect of that, so we can relate it to that if you'd like. But I know that knowing who you are, that likely happens in your personal life too, personally and professionally, of being that person who's there to guide. Usually, when you have that gift, it happens in all areas of life. So, how do you do that for other people?
I believe that conversation is the blessing and the gateway to encouraging and showing women what it means to go through that process, just like what we're talking about now. Someone could hear it or it can be a direct conversation with her. But I think more than anything, like movement is that empowerment and that gateway because I do believe that when we have stagnance in our energy, in our bodies, and we're not moving, those thoughts are not circulating in and out of our bodies. Those emotions are not circulating with our blood. Those things are not moving around us or in and through us. So it's hard to then start processing those emotions and feelings and thoughts without that kind of movement. So when we do move, we are physically affirming our ability to do hard things. And
Right.
the gateway, in my opinion, has always been that gateway for me. And I see it in a lot of the women that take my classes that I've worked with for personal training and boxing. And then the other part is literally a hug, a safe physical space to hold and contain someone else's vulnerable energy. And it's just a gateway. Being able to hug someone and let them know, hey, this is going to be hard. Yeah. Moments where it's hard, but you do have people, you have a safe space, you can start that process, and God and someone else will carry you through that process. I think that is a really powerful resource that we do have in our safe spaces and the people that we care about and in healers in our community. And that's just where it starts. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Of course, there's guidance and coaching, but that resource I feel like always comes from genuine, loving, caring, safe space.
Absolutely. That's so true. I feel like there have been moments in my life where I may not even know what I'm feeling or what to say, but if someone hugs me, I will immediately start crying.
Mhm.
Like, I needed that. I don't know. I don't have the words. It starts conversation and then maybe that opens up conversation. It's like you
Yeah.
feel safe or held or just like that someone's there for you. So that's really beautiful that you shared that in that way. Very Cancerian of you.
Whatever that energy is, it could even be just a word. I do believe that healing must be guided in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it's a recurring thing. It's like knowing that you need to come back for that hug is okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So conversation, I feel, even fitness too. Like I love watching your fitness journey, if you will, and boxing and running because there's a mental connection that happens there. And it's also a form of expression. How does expression become a healing tool in your work, in your life? You talked about movement and moving that energy out of your body and just getting all of the things flowing so that you can get to that point where you express.
Yeah. I literally love this quote. The opposite of depression isn't happiness, it's expression. You got to move that energy,
Right.
needs to go somewhere. And for me, I do feel like that begins for people when they are introduced to something that they see others enjoying and finding fulfillment in. So
Right.
that's the big piece is either you need to enjoy or find fulfillment in that form of movement or expression, which is why hobbies are so important, or you need to see someone else doing that and finding joy or feeling well represented in that space. Because if you don't have that positive relation in your mind to that activity or to that process, it's not going to last. We do things for the reward, we don't do them for the process. Understanding and seeing that there's a reward in it is the way to start and also is the way to continue it. Being able to express isn't just in movement, but I'm big on finding ways to let our brains explore or shut off. And the shut off is not for everyone. It doesn't come naturally to everyone. I believe that it's a couple tiers up from exercise and then movement meditation and art and creation. And then it becomes that I can literally control when I want to shut my brain off,
Right.
quiet it and shut out the thoughts. But I do think that like the introduction to joy and other activities that are not attached to the outcome is where that magic starts to happen.
Absolutely. And allowing yourself to play and explore to even figure out what that is, because I could sit there and watch you run all day. But I know that I'm also at a stage in my life where my knees are not having it. Okay.
Yep.
That's something I'm working on. But my point is, I have found other ways. I used to love to run, and that was really a way for me to challenge myself mentally, and I still love it, but where I am now, it's causing inflammation, so I found other things that I really enjoyed, but I found that it was also a process to allow myself to explore outside of what I was used to. I think a
Mm,
lot of high-performing women, we do that as well, like, we have our routine, I do this, I go running, or I go to Pilates, or whatever it is, and that's
yeah.
it. And then giving yourself permission to explore joy in other ways. I've fallen in love with walking on different trails, which is not something I really allowed myself to do before because I was focused on, am I burning enough calories? Like I should be running, I should be doing something high intensity, just all this pressure around the outcome rather than just doing it for the joy. I'm like, I really love this actually.
Yeah.
Um, but getting to that point to even allow yourself to explore, I think sometimes with high performing women with us, it's a fear of, am I going to do this wrong? Am I going to fail? Girl, you're just walking. Oh, I didn't walk 10,000 steps, so it wasn't good enough. All of these things, just do it for the peace and getting present with yourself. It's a moment of stillness, but it also can be meditative to just be with you. So it's a process and allowing yourself to do that.
Yeah, and it goes back to consumption too. How am I supposed to prioritize joy if I'm just consuming a whole bunch of performative stuff, not joyous things. The pressure and the fight that it is to be a woman and to be validated in this society or to feel like you're valued for who you are at a bare minimum, that's hard. So we gotta change what it is that we're consuming on our timelines, when we're consuming it, and allow that to be the catalyst that pushes us to thinking differently about our activities and about our expression and the purpose of them. There's also a point with cycles too. We can get away with certain things at certain times of the month as women. I should think, but we can feel less pain, less inflammation, less consequence in some of those activities based on when they are. So a lot of times we'll start something and be like, "Oh, now I'm running or I'm walking," and we think it needs to be an everyday thing, but it might not serve us every day in our cycle. And so it is okay to do it sporadically if it's every 2 weeks, every once a month. I tell people, if you're returning to this at the same time each month, then that means that it is serving your body in a certain way and you do have a desire for it at a specific time. So leaning into it and learning that and embracing it as your timing and your cycle and what works for you when it works for you.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good perspective shift because I literally just experienced that this week for sure.
There's literally science behind it. I might feel really great running 2 days into my cycle, into my actual period, and then I get 4 days later and my joints are automatically in a lot more pain because I'm ovulating and I'm like, "All right, that's not the activity." But if I'm consistently finding that, like, it doesn't feel good at that time, then I feel better just saying, "I already know that it's gonna be that way. I'm gonna go swim or take a walk," or whatever it is.
What are some small ways that we can start reconnecting with who we are without the pressure to monetize or perform? And you touched on this a little bit, but if somebody were to say, Monica, what is the exact next step I can take? Would you recommend they take a class? Should they watch a fitness video online, get inspiration? Where does someone start if they're at that point? Let's say maybe they're at their rock bottom point, or maybe they're at a point where they're just having a hard time taking the next step. What's something small that they can do?
I do believe that as creatures of habit, we need to have something to replace what it is that we're trying to take away, and I believe that a detox from social media or specific types of social media is important. Hard to exactly curate what it is that you wanna consume on the internet, and so just taking time away from that
Yeah.
plays a huge role because it's literally how our brains are constructed. Just being able to change habits with things like our basal ganglia, that part of our brain is the part that develops habits, and it makes it very hard to change those habits when we are consistently looking at different things, like, all day. Eliminating that part of our consumption and replacing it with something that is no pressure, just another activity. I did this in my last Rise and Run for Mental Health. We just got out some hula hoops and started hula hooping. It was like, "Can you hula hoop? Can you put your arms overhead? Can you clap now? Can you clap to the beat? Can you do it on one leg?" And 2 minutes, no one was thinking about any of the heavy things going on in their lives. They weren't thinking about what they needed to do after. They couldn't think about anything besides, "Can I actually do this?" It opened doors, so I'm capable of doing other things. Something as simple and as silly as, like, a childlike activity, but pick up an activity that's so simple that you can literally just do it real quick. We did origami. We all made fortune tellers. Like, you just pulled out pieces of paper and folded them up, and it was like, "Oh, what do I do? Connect the 1 with the 2," and then it just cute and a quick activity, and that just changes the neuroplasticity of your brain to take on new habits, to put less pressure on your process, and that, again, opens the doors. It just gives you the next step to something else that
Yeah,
involves a little bit more play and more joy.
I love that. I mean, obviously, I'm grinning because that just sparks so much joy in me just hearing about it. Because when the last time I can't even think I saw a hula hoop from the fortune tellers. That's part of what we said at the beginning of the conversation, which is just getting back to the basic. Like, it doesn't have to be complex. Joy doesn't have to be complex. And that's such a healing thing. Even just thinking about it, I'm like, wow, a hula hoop. I love that.
I can't even tell you the way that, like, everyone smiles and laughs are just ingrained in my brain and in my memory. It was everything.
That's beautiful. I feel that also facilitates intimacy. Feel it can help people let their guard down, and you can really build relationships that are built on a healthy foundation versus transactional relationships, which is something that you've spoken about moving away from. So, what does that mean to you? Moving away from transactional relationships.
I recognize sure as hell you talk about, like, intimacy and chill. Look at me, I'm just, like, chilling on my couch. Girl. Yeah, so I started to recognize that I like to refer to it as inflammation. There was a disconnect, not great feeling that I had, like the kind that you get in your joints after overworking yourself, the kind that you get in your stomach when you eat the wrong thing over and over again and the wrong bacteria builds up. That was kind of inflammation I would feel when I would be dealing with a situation, partnerships, interactions that were just literally about, well, what does that do for me? What does that do for us? Like, we that I don't want to be attached to that because this, that, and the third. And it was just like, I don't feel free. I don't
Right.
feel free and I don't feel that this is the proper representation of who I am right now. And it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes me not I just realized that I wasn't a huge business person in that way. And we'll talk about me as a manifester. But
Yeah.
yeah, moving away from transactional relationships and interactions really just means saying no or not right now. If not right now feels better. And how do we do that is we just take a moment and ask ourselves, when I highly recommend looking yourself in the mirror
Yeah.
and asking yourself, look yourself in the eye and ask yourself, does this align? Does this fit? Does this feel good? Or does the outcome of this feel like something that will feel good? Because, yeah, we have delayed gratification for sure at
Right.
in our lives, but that's where you have to start. You have to strengthen your ears to your inner voice. You have to strengthen your ears to God's voice. Like, you have to be able to be connected to that in order to weed out all the rest of the noise and really make an informed decision that aligns. And that I know we say it over and over, time and time again, but that's the formula. That is the recipe to self-love, to self-loyalty. So moving away from that means moving closer to you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be quiet either. Ask yourself real quick one time early in the day. Ask yourself again in the afternoon. Don't rush yourself to make decisions that you feel like you have to because someone else has a deadline.
Right. Absolutely. That goes back to being still with yourself and being able to just be present, to check in. Takes a lot of power and strength. We think about power and strength, I think sometimes, or at least I was always seeing it this way because I felt like that is what I saw in my reality and also in society, that power was a lot of times force or a lot of times status or all these other things. And that may be a form of power that some people enjoy, but I'm similar to you where I realize I don't like doing business a certain way. Maybe because we're both manifestors.
Yeah. That is it.
We're both manifestors in human design and we're meant to lead. We're meant to catalyze and we're meant to do things differently than how it has worked for so many other people. But with that
Yeah.
be some challenges because many times it's isolating. We can be the only one saying, "Hey, I don't really like this. I'm going to go over here."
The push through is not for us.
No, burnt out super quickly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I see what I see. Whatever I'm meant to initiate, I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to go into my rest cycle. So we have our creative cycles, we have our rest cycles, which as a whole other element on top of just being a woman and the cycles we go through and then nature cycles. That is what I feel like has saved me is really being present with self. Like I have to be still. That is a life skill. Otherwise, I can move so quickly. And then before I know it, I get to that burned out point again, and then it's just this whole cycle that repeats, so I know you can relate as a manifester, like, life survival skill, you have to slow down.
Right. You have to. And, it's a thrival skill too. It's just
Yep.
soft girl era.
You said that many of us are losing the best years of our lives to expectations that do not serve us. What helped you to release the pressure of that timeline?
am constantly releasing. I think a big aha moment has come by way of witnessing and being an instrument in my parents' aging. What that looks like to the rest of our family, what it looks like to me as their daughter, and again, constantly releasing. But that was a not just an aha moment, but a plummet to the depth of inner child realizations and healing because I was like, this, especially for my father, this man it contributed to me genetically and has been the one to share a household with my mother, help raise and provide to whatever extent. But I'm seeing this person who is in the later end of their life and doesn't have any worldly experiences, doesn't leave the home, doesn't have close relationships or no intimacy,
Mm.
doesn't have connection, yearns as someone who is retired for connection. And there are a lot of other things that I could talk about like my childhood, my growing up in the environment that I grew up in, and being blessed now to realize what that environment was and how it's affected me as an adult. But my father is also losing his memory. He has dementia. And so witnessing all of these things on top of the factor of you're losing your ability to remember things, I started to see like he lost a lot of years. There are many years that he could still really, really be enjoying, but the
Right.
choice to do so, it feels too little too late. Right. And there are certain things that you can help, but that person has to help themselves. They have to want to help themselves. So that was a big realization for me. It's pain, right? Pain is one of our biggest teachers, and it's witnessing that pain in that person, but also going through my own in relation to them. And that learning that lesson from the hardship to start reclaiming your time and being like, dang, I want to live my life. I want to really enjoy it. And another piece of that isn't so jarring is getting those years back comes from understanding enthusiasm versus gratitude. Many of us are in prayer each day. We have moments where we journal about what we're thankful for. But I was recognizing, like, really enthusiastic about things that I prayed for many years, like this beautiful penthouse I live in, the job that I love, coaching people, being on a stage, playing music, smiles, laughs, throwing punches. I created this life through prayer, through doing the work that I was called to do. I had to check myself and be like, why are you hanging on to the next moment and what the next moment's going to bring when you're in it right now?
Yeah.
So, what is it going to take? And I kind of had to shake myself awake from that because that's what depression is. You're literally in this whole like stuck in your thoughts, stuck in the past. And then anxiety is your fear of the future. The only cure is presence.
Right.
Because that big thing that I was working towards or that we work towards is literally this moment right now. That's the realization. So it's become my biggest message when I'm coaching, when I'm speaking to people is, man, we are working towards the right now. That's really all of it. And then just flipping that on its head and being like, what does that process look like to just choose joy? Small changes need to be made in order to forge a path of joy for the rest of the day and just doing it over and over again.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear about your father's dementia. I hear that's really difficult to go through with a loved one, on top of just experiencing your parents aging in general. So, thank you for sharing that vulnerability with us. I'm sure there are people who can absolutely relate on many levels. And what you said about feeling the pain from your experiences is so true and so real. And that's, I believe, as well, the catalyst to not only healing, but just allowing yourself to experience joy truly and fully. and having the gratitude to do so, like you said, because otherwise, I feel like when you don't allow yourself to feel all the things, including the pain, that's we get into that loop where you can slip into depression of this isn't good enough because you're still searching for that joy, but you can't get to it until you go through the pain. So it feels counterintuitive, or it feels like if I'm going towards joy, I don't want to feel the pain, but it's almost like that's the doorway.
And your discernment of what's the wrong kind of pain, the
Right.
right kind of pain comes from practice. And practice results in failure sometimes. And we have to embrace all of that. Can't remember who said it, but emotions are like urine. They are supposed to pass through you.
Oh, it's a great analogy. Yes.
You get the nutrients from it. You get also your detoxification from it. Like all of that needs to happen in order for you to live a real and full life. And so that's been one of my biggest realizations. And we were talking about how it's like, this part sucks, but eventually I'll be okay. And then eventually you'll be good is the most important add on for me. It's like you get to feel all of those things and what a blessing that is because you come out wiser, you come out better, and you make someone else's life better because of it.
The journey of life is a very fascinating experience we're having
So,
here. I ask myself, where are we?
me, girl, I went to LA. That was a quantum leap itself. You go across the country and you're like 3 hours behind. What does that mean? I came back over to this coast, and I think you and I talked about the moon cycle, but I didn't see myself reacclimating to this to the time change because I've always told myself I'm a West Coast girl, like I'm meant to be on Pacific time.
Hit me back.
And when I came back and woke up one time and slept through the night, and it showed me like, oh, that part of you that was like, really wish I lived over there, wish I was over there. You can put her to bed. Like you can be over there if you want to, but found alignment in my sleep schedule over here, and I realized I finally stepped into a chapter in my life here where I'm like, I'm I'm good here.
Yeah.
I have all the things here, and I don't need to leave them in order to live a better life.
It's the gratitude of I actually have everything I've been asking for. It's right here. And if I have a moment where I want to go to the beach, you still have that available to you. You can go spend a
Mm.
weekend or a week or a month or whatever it is, rent a little Airbnb. That's what I'm considering. Just traveling different places. I don't have to uproot and completely relocate.
Because we want to sometimes. We
Yeah.
literally want to be like, we can why there's a big piece that we didn't necessarily talk about, but it's accountability,
Yes.
gratitude, and also self-loyalty means holding yourself accountable. And man, oh man, am I in a chapter of finally doing that. And I have a lot of tough love from friends and family that is both direct and indirect that has led me to that too. And that's a big piece of it. Self
Ab-
accountable to be like, okay, girl, you don't like it, but what have you done? What are you going to do to
Yeah.
change it?
We have more power than we realize. I can live in my mind a lot and feel like I have communicated or taken the action. It's like you've been doing all that in your mind.
Mm. Wow, you had all these conversations in your imagination.
No. Not one thing said out loud. Oh, yeah, doing the work and the accountability has to come out of your mind into the world. And that's a really big, powerful piece of it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. We are at the end of our episode already. But before we go, I'm doing something fun with all the guests, which is rapid fire recess. I'm going to ask you a question and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. There's no right or wrong answer. And you don't really have to be rapid. You can take your time to respond if you'd like. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. A belief you had to release to become more yourself.
A belief that I had to release was that every day needed to have the same level of productivity in order for me to be financially stable.
Ooh,
Not
good.
even just successful. Like the financially stable part is like, and I come from a not very financially abundant background, as many of us don't. And I realized that like some people are chasing millions because that's what we're told to chase
Right.
lifestyle. And I think that kind of got a little bit intertwined into my goals at some point. It like infiltrated my goals, even though it was
Mm.
And so it was like, if I didn't work extra hard, and you know this, as a manifester, we will work hard and then we like literally the next day for me, I will be unable to think, form proper thoughts. I just don't have it. And it's probably more appropriate for me to lay in the sun by the pool today.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I just as productive by the end of the week as someone who goes to work from 9 to 5 every single day. It
Yep.
just depends on who you are. So for me, that was something that I really had to dispel and just disrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. A moment this year that reminded you of your strengths.
The moment this year for me that reminded me of my strength was, I'll put a positive one out there. When I this most recent Rise and Run for mental health, because my strength is literally in vulnerability and connection. And we all left that event feeling stronger, lighter, better equipped to handle whatever in a really heavy time. That moment was everything and it was imperfect. It was like I've had analysis paralysis over many things in my life. I've been a perfectionist over many things. And so they never left the ground. And that's why partnership is important because it shows you what it could be if you have help. But for
Right.
me, finally stepping into a chapter to do it my way was so important. Not because I was mad at anyone or because I didn't like the way they were doing things. It was literally because that I owed it to myself to do it myself. And you understand that calling. And hopefully some viewers do. But doing that reminded me that the strength is not in the revenue. It's not in the marketing, it's literally in the connection and in the vulnerability.
And allowing yourself to lead. True manifestor energy for all the manifestors that may be listening in human design. You are not meant to be following. We can very much easily be comfy behind the scenes and having outsourcing our power in many ways.
Yeah, we can hide for sure. And then inflammation.
Yeah. Come on out. So you're meant to lead. And I think a lot of manifestors as well have shared experiences similar to zodiac sign. Similar signs and similar energy types have a lot of shared experiences in terms of how they were raised or their life experiences. And
Yeah.
manifestors have a lot of conditioning around who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to show up, and what success means. And deconditioning part of that and allowing yourself to step into that power is exactly what you said. Okay, I'm going to do this because I feel called to do it. I'm going to listen to my creative urge and not be so focused on these material outcomes. And they will come, they always come.
Yeah.
But
Very
it's just
true.
different order than what we're used to and what works for a lot of other people. So you're doing it. I'm excited. A practice or ritual that keeps you grounded right now?
Two really big ones. I take so many baths. I take so many baths. Oh my goodness. And I intentionally go into it knowing what I wanna do. Sometimes I wanna scroll when I'm in the bath, and I'm okay with that. Other times, I'm like, I'm literally going to put my phone down and just lay and let the thoughts move through me. Let the emotions move through me. Like, it's literally just a time where I feel like I get really, really in my manifesting energy, but also in my healing energy. And then physically, obviously, I really need that because I'm active and most of the things that I do are, like, more masculine energy type of things, running, jumping, punching, lifting weights. So the bath is a great balance to that. And then watching sunsets might sound crazy, but living facing west is so important to me. I may not live on the west, but living and seeing a sunset as often as possible. It's just literally my time to sit and pray. I might journal. I might literally just listen to music, but I'll just sit on my balcony or my couch, watch sunset, or I'll go walk out by the water and watch sunset. And that is something that just calms me, grounds me, soothes me, and it allows me to not have to, or not have to, but not work through other people's energy. It's a solo thing that I like to do and really embracing that time because it happens every day. Every day the sun sets.
Yeah, sunsets and sunrises, but especially sunsets, they're very magical. Visual gratitude. You can just see, you can't look at a sunset and not feel gratitude of, wow, this is so beautiful.
Bigger than if I'm so centralized in my life, my challenges, my relationships, my problems, my, I can look at the sun and be like, oh, there's other stuff going on out here and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, last one. One thing you say to yourself when fear or doubt creeps in.
One thing I say to myself,
Yeah. When fear or doubt creeps in.
a resounding thing that I tell myself is that God will make a way because I wouldn't be called to do it if I wasn't meant to. And that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it's going to be a success, but it is going to get me further. We're going to get ahead in some way, shape, or form at the right time. And that brings me comfort because I've done hard things before. I've done scary things before. And like you were saying in the beginning, I like to say that oftentimes that progress is in doing the work that we fear. And that work is in stillness. So just taking a moment and being still and asking yourself what it is that you're really afraid of is also really important too.
Absolutely. That accountability and self awareness, all pointing back to the mirror. It's all you. It's really you against you.
Error is so real. I finally started looking myself in the mirror and saying things out loud, and it has hit way differently than just thinking them or writing them down too. It's like really looking myself in the eye and like getting to know me and seeing me in a certain way and like seeing me in my own dialogue.
Yeah.
It's been crazy. It's like, Issa Rae in The Mirror Bitch. She's like,
What's the thing? Mirror worked
I was
great.
like, dang, this is yeah, it's so different. But
Mhm.
sound I love the trend of the Delulu, but I also love the basic. The basic. Be basic. Do the most basic thing.
Yep.
Regressed as it feels, as childish, as elementary. That's the real healing stuff.
Yep.
That's the real empowering stuff. That's the real positively enabling stuff.
Yep. Back to the basics. Patience. That's really the key. I love that you focus on that because it really is true. Everything is built upon that. And if you don't have your foundation together, which many times if we're experiencing the disconnects and the misalignment, it's something within the foundation. So getting back to the basics, going through the weeds to get back there, whatever you've built on top of that is really the key. And when you focus on the gratitude and all the other things, you realize I already have it. I already have what I need. It's all here inside.
The
Yeah.
woman her shoes every day is fully held and fully supported. The one that just slides them on, skips over those steps, doesn't feel the same.
Yep. Absolutely. So, how can people connect with you, Monica? Where can they find you if they want to follow your journey? Where are you on the internets?
All things can be found at my website at monica-jones.com. My social media is on there, everything. I am getting ready to launch a really cool subscription-based community. Great connections. Y'all are really getting me into the Substack. I'm like, let me jump on here. But again, all in our own time. I have no specific launch time or date. Just going with what feels most purposeful and aligned. I'm just in my humble servant era. So yeah, you can find me on monica-jones.com. My Instagram is train with mine. And yeah, that's where I'm producing content that feels aligned and where we can be better resource to one another.
Absolutely. Very inspiring. Everyone go check it out. Follow the journey.
Look at what you're looking selves. They
And something. It's very true. Make social media social.
no soul. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. I'm very excited to continue to follow your journey. And I know everyone listening or soon to be listening is going to love hearing your story. So thank you so much for joining us.
This was such a powerful conversation. I just really have to thank you so much. TL, I love you.
You're welcome back.
Yeah, we all know about line timing, but I just have to give you your flowers because this chapter of you stepping into this culmination of your journey has really done positive things for myself and the women around us. So love you.
I'm so thankful for you. to be back. Thank you so much. I received that and I appreciate that. Thank you. We're in this together. All right. We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.